Hello everyone and welcome. This is the last session, last but I hope not least. My name is Nazim Rashidi. I'm a journalist and editor in television here in Skopje, television Alsat. And it is a pleasure to moderate this part of the forum. One of the reasons is because it's a little bit peculiar as a topic. Today the main subject was European Union, the integration, but we will discuss US and North Macedonia relation in a Biden era. And why is this important? Is because United States has always been a stable and very, very important ally of North Macedonia since the country's independence. But how this relation will continue, this is very important to stress. And the importance comes especially today and yesterday when another veto came for North Macedonia and Albania from Brussels, and we had the precedent here in our country saying that since this happened, then we could actually see to strengthen our relationship with the United States. So we will discuss this in this context, of course, and European integration context. But I'm not going to speak. I have two dear friends here. The first one is Marek Dabrowski, non-resident scholar from Bluger in Brussels, and Damir Marušić, resident senior fellow, Atlantic Council, and he came from United States of America. Thank you very much for being here. And I will start and ask the question. I will start with you, Mr. Marušić. Since you're coming from Washington, from United States, how do you see these events today when the politician here, our president, asked to have more strong relation with United States, and we have a new president in United States? Could this happen?
I think it very much could happen. I'll even say it very much should happen. I think that the challenge currently for the region and for generally, even more broadly, Europe, is that the Biden administration, while very much keen to fix the mistakes of the previous administration and to repair the damage to alliances and such, is still very much thinking in global terms, in very big terms. And I think as a result, they're not yet approaching problems regionally and strategically. The challenge is that as they focus on the big challenges, China and climate change, the Middle East getting out of restarting the Iran deal, and tackling these global challenges, they're missing also not just that the local very much matters and the regional very much matters, but that the context in which they would otherwise tackle issues such as the Western Balkans has shifted, I think, dramatically. And that is something we've very much seen today in all of the reactions. Yesterday was the meeting where the, well, as was pointed out earlier, it's not a no, but no answer yet. And the strong reactions from your Prime Minister, from Prime Minister Edi Rama as well, as to this being a European failure. I think this is all true. I don't think in Washington they have yet latched on to the fact that the mechanism through which progress in the region has always been conceived of, that is European integration, is in trouble. The good news is I think that the Biden administration is incredibly well positioned to make a difference. And I say this with not just because I know some of these people, but really in Washington, some of the best diplomats, career diplomats that the United States has right now are in the region. Ambassador Pyatt in Greece, Ambassador Burns here, and Ambassador Yuri Kim in Albania. These are some of our best and brightest. And so there's a lot of room, I think, for the administration to make a difference. So I think there's hope.
Another question for you. When you mentioned the ambassador, and I will quote the ambassador in North Macedonia today, she said that we are disappointed by the failure to approve North Macedonian EU negotiation framework yesterday. There is no doubt it has done the work necessary to launch accession talks. Moving this process forward now would promote greater regional stability and cooperation, a goal we all share. And I think when she says we all share, she includes EU, Washington, Brussels, and the Western Balkan countries. So do you think that Washington is sending a signal that the Brussels is failing as well?
I think they have to be having those conversations. I don't think it's quite yet filtered up high enough into the system. I'm sure they're getting that from their ambassadors right now, that reports back at what a disaster this is. And I expect and hope that higher up, and you will start getting that conversation, that this needs to be moved. But however, again, I stress, at this point, the other thing I didn't mention is that the administration has not yet been fully staffed up and confirmed. There are more people need to be coming up. So I would expect in the next 6 months that you will get more pressure from higher up. I think the ambassadors here are definitely sounding the alarm and letting people at the State Department know.
Okay, we will come up with more questions, but I want to ask now Mr. Marek Dobrovsky on the other issues. When we talk here in the Balkans about regional cooperation and also economic perspective, there is always maybe one voice when it comes from Washington and Brussels, when it comes about corruption or rule of law. And no matter the disappointment that probably came from yesterday, still this country have to work a lot about these issues. So do you see any cooperation or a push maybe that together can come from Washington and Brussels on this issue?
Definitely yes. I think we can expect more this kind of coordinated pressure, I would say positive pressure, from the Biden administration and from the EU and EU member states, probably more coordinated than it was under the Trump administration, which basically I think that put less weight on things like governance standard, corruption, rule of law, or human rights. Now these values are on the top of US agenda. And I think that this should be taken very seriously by all countries in the region, not only North Macedonia and Albania, which we discussed today, but also other Western Balkan countries, and definitely also by those countries which are already EU members, which also have quite a lot of work to complete on this front. When we look, for example, on any international rating, like Freedom House, Freedom in the World, or Nation in Transit, also Freedom House, of Transparency International, Corruption Perception Index, or economic rating of Index of Economic Freedom of Heritage Foundation. In all these ratings, it's clear that there is quite a lot for all countries of the region, including North Macedonia, Albania, to do on exactly this front, which is perhaps not totally purely economic front, but it's economic and political and legal and generally what we call governance. So basically building stronger institutions, trying seriously fight with corruption, with organized crime, and also reform economy in such way, and also reform state such way to decrease temptation and opportunity for corruption. I always represented the view, I spent, it's not secret, that I worked quite many years in Ukraine and also in other countries, former Soviet Union, where again, fighting corruption, especially in Ukraine, is very high on agenda also of EU. That the first thing is eliminate source, systemic source of corruption. And of course, fighting symptoms is also very important, but it's not enough. Thank you.
When the Western Balkan country do fail in a way to integrate in European Union, they always saw United States as a helping hand, as a geopolitic force that they can push some issues. Do you think that that can happen in economical context? I mean, United States has made it clear that it wants these countries in the European Union because it is their interest. But when it comes to this, can they do a more push in terms of economical growth, economical strategy? We heard today so many issues discussed here, from economy to energy, but do you think that Washington have this power?
I don't think so. It's the greatest superpower. It's still the greatest world economy. But in case of this region, or more generally in European countries, especially Central East, Southeast European countries, there is a matter of economic geography and trade gravity. EU is a dominating partner, and US represent only a small fraction of trade of this region. In investment, it's American firms play a bit larger role, but also not dominant. So, of course, US continues to provide technical assistance and financial assistance to the region. But again, EU is here natural major actor. So, shortly speaking, US cannot substitute the role of European Union. We must be realistic.
Okay. If this can be a little bit more difficult in terms of economy, do you think this push can be done in a political context? And why I'm asking this question, again, today we had the two prime ministers being very, very critical towards Brussels, probably a vocabulary that we are not used to hear, to be so direct, to speak about values, to speak about the illusion that European Union created. And when this happened, this country, you know, they go to Washington and ask for help. In this context, can we see more?
Well, look, it's a difficult question, right? Because obviously so much of what's holding this up has to do with European politics themselves. Problems within the countries. Every country is playing their own game. Some are hiding behind other countries to do this. Now, of course, look, I think one reality in the region has been that if the United States gets behind an initiative, it can make progress. The bigger question, which I alluded to earlier, is really whether the European Union, that was the end goal since the 1990s for the region, whether it has fundamentally changed itself in the interim, and so that we need to be thinking differently about what accession means, what progress it entails, and then what constructive role the United States can play. Obviously, history has not ended. Geopolitics is still happening. It's a dangerous time in the world right now, and it's in the United States' interest to have a European order in this region. Whether Bulgaria, within the next 6 months, under US pressure, and for political reasons after their elections, maybe comes around on this, I hope. I imagine there will be that.
Or
but-
if I put it in a different way,
Yeah.
we saw a great role of Washington when it came up for Prespa agreement, when it came up for Ohrid peace agreement here 20 years ago. So can we probably see this kind of action during Biden era, direct involvement?
I mean, certainly, yes, I would expect to see it. I would expect to see it. The difference, of course, is that in this current standoff, our Bulgarian friends are the obstreperous and not really coming halfway partner in all of this, from my perspective in any case. And so, yes, I think that if there is an opportunity to bridge a political divide on something like this, you will see the Biden administration step in to try and bridge it. But the bigger question remains, I think.
We have only a few minutes with this panel, so I will ask Mr. Dabrowski another question, probably from economical point of view. You probably answer somehow, but when we talk with American representatives, they always say that it's a part of their interest, North Macedonia or the Balkans, to be part of the EU. But in order to do this, they need a lot of economical prosperity. In this context, could Washington influence, not directly, but maybe some strategical help in the economy of this country, suggesting to Brussels to invest more, or suggesting to Brussels to actually put in the map this region more economically, not directly from Washington, but through Brussels?
Frankly speaking, realistically, it's not very probable scenario, because these are autonomous EU decisions, and appreciating positive attitude of subsequent US administrations to Northern Macedonia, to other countries of the region, and most likely we can expect even more active engagement of the Biden administration, which Damir mentioned already. US again will not substitute EU and its strategic and historical responsibility for this region. And I must say that as EU citizen, I just feel shame, and my critique would not necessarily be addressed towards so-called Brussels, because my understanding of Brussels, there are pan-European institutions like European Commission or European Parliament. They stay quite consequently behind both North Macedonia and Albania accession aspirations. The problem is with individual member states. And even I can understand that there are some distant EU member states, let's say in Northern Europe, which for various domestic purposes, this region is not so important. And some domestic consideration like fear of migration or something like this, maybe from short-term political perspective more important. But I am extremely surprised by the attitude of direct neighbors of Macedonia, because actually most troubles over the last 20 years came from this angle. Fortunately, one neighboring countries already changed radically its attitude, which also we observe today, but another one which has still a lot of problems, even being EU member states, it adds to it. And I am not sure whether US, well, let's hope that US diplomacy can help here, but I think that this is primary responsibility for diplomacy of other EU member states, the largest one, who tells that they support North Macedonia and Albania bids, and they should do something more to impose such pressure on our blocking. One maybe general remark that unfortunately this is not only well, unfortunately, maybe it's the wrong way, but we shouldn't limit this pessimistic assessment to the negotiation bit of North Macedonia, Albania. If we look, for example, for two countries which already started negotiation several years before, Montenegro and Serbia, this process also practically stopped and is moving very slowly. So this is a really very big problem of the credibility of EU promise done in Thessaloniki summit.
So we have to conclude, but just shortly, you can agree, Damir, that if in economy the pressure or the influence cannot be so direct, in politics and in regional cooperation and in geopolitics, it will be much, much higher.
I think so, and I think you'll see it in the next 6 months.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for this session. As I said, this is the last one. At least we try to give a little bit of different perspective about integration, not only European Union, but also United States and relations with North Macedonia and Balkans. Thank you very much.
Nazim, it was great.
Thank you.